Who doesn't love a handmade batter bowl? These are actually my very favorite. Maybe not necessarily for batter, but I love them as my popcorn bowl. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to trim this and handle it. In our last video, we learned how to throw it. So if you missed that, go back one and you'll see it. But here I'm checking the thickness. I always do this so I know how large I can make my foot. Once I have my thickness checked, then I'm going to try to get this nice and centered on my bat. Here I'm using a foam bat because I have an irregular shaped rim, and this really helps. If you're having a problem with your pot sticking to a foam bat, your piece might be a little on the dry side. So if you just wet your rim a little bit, this will help it stick. Now I've got to get this nice and centered. Sometimes that's a little more difficult on a foam bat just because you can't tap to center. You actually have to move your piece. So here I am. I've just got one hand on the center of my bowl, and then my other one is checking where it's hitting. Once I know where it's hitting, I know that I need to move it away from that hand. So I just sit here for a minute. It depends. So these little circles lines I have on that foam bat, that really helps to get it started. And then, like I said, wherever the high point is where I'm going to move it away from. Now I'm going to carve out that center piece from where I checked my thickness. This way I don't lose my bottom by trimming too much off of it. Now I go directly to the side. I always have both hands working together. So my left hand is touching my piece and also touching the tool. And then my right hand is carving away any clay that I don't want. You can see that I didn't get this quite centered. Not a big deal at all. I'm just going to kind of move it just ever so slightly. And that way my foot is actually in the very center of my piece. Definitely want to do this. If you didn't get it right the first time, move it a little bit before you go too far. This is really going to help. Now, I generally don't trim all the way down my pot. You can do that. You can see here, you can trim all the way down to your rim if you really want to. When I'm throwing, I try to make sure that that is the correct thickness at the beginning. And that way I don't have to do it during trimming. So now there's exceptions to that. Like with every rule, there's an exception, right? If you're going to want to do any carving, you're going to want to leave your walls a little extra thick for that. There are things where you do want your walls a little thicker. And then, of course, there's things where you want your walls a little thinner. With this batter bowl, I want it just at a normal thickness. The only exception would be my rim. I like the rim a little thicker, not very much, but a little bit more, just because I know that when people are using the whisk or whatever, they smack it right on that rim when they're done just to get the excess batter or whatever they're using off of it. And if you guys are wondering what the heck this little thing is on my piece that I keep putting my finger on, well, it's trash. It truly is trash. A girl in the studio I used to work in, she used to drink these, I don't know what they were actually, all the time and had all these little lids. And just one day I grabbed one. I'm like, that would work perfect for this. And I've been using it ever since. Now it's time to remove the clay that's at the very bottom of our pot. And the first thing I do is I just pick a spot. You can either do it from the foot or the center and work your way over. Just skim ever so lightly the top of it off. You don't want to go down super thick because then you're going to gouge it and you're going to just have a really rough time doing this. But if you just skim a light layer off of the top and just go back and forth until it's all gone. Remember at the very beginning when you checked your thickness and you marked it? Well, that is going to be your guide. That way you don't remove the entire bottom. So when you're going back and forth and you're removing those layers, once you cannot see that guide anymore, that means you are at the perfect thickness. If you go further than that, you may not have a bottom anymore, and that always sucks. So make sure you leave that clay. And a little trick, if you're getting scared and you're thinking you're going too thin and you just want to stop, then stop. Go ahead and stop. You can take a little bit of water and some of your trimmings and fill in that little hole and it'll be just fine. Now that we've got our bowl all trimmed, it's all cute and it's ready to get a chop. All right, now it is time to add our handle. Our piece is all trimmed and it's ready to go. Anytime you're going to add any piece or anything to your pot, it's generally during the trimming stage. With a batter bowl, my handle is actually going to be pretty small. I use it more just for a little area to put my thumb. And then my hand wraps around the bowl itself. Here you can see I've got this little chunk of clay, and I'm going to roll it into the shape of, let's say, a carrot. Once I have this kind of carrot shape, I slam it down. Generally, I'll do this on a table, but you know what? The stool's handy, so here we go. Now that I've got the flat end and I've got a rounded end, the rounded end is going to be, so if it was going to be on a mug, that's where your hand is going to be grabbing it. The flat end is going to be on the outside. Then I take the back of my thumb and I work it down the center of that clay. And then I'll go to each side. As I'm doing this, I keep a bucket of water handy because I need my hand wet and I also need a chunk of clay wet. If it's catching at all, it's not wet enough. Your hand should just slide right off. So you start at the top, and what you're trying to do is keep it a little thicker at the top and go down so it goes a little narrower at the bottom. If you stop right before you get to the end of that clay, then you're going to have this little bulge of clay at the end, and it's not going to be what we're going for. So I want my hand to slide right off of that tip. So I'm going to start at the top, slide all the way to the bottom, and as you can see, I rotate my hand back and forth. This keeps both sides nice and even. If you don't do that, sometimes you'll have one side that's a little wider than the other. So it really does help to rotate it. Once I've got the thickness and the length that I want, I'm going to cut this at an angle. I use the serrated rib. I generally would put this on a table, and then you can see that angle right there. That angle is really going to help to have more of a surface that attaches. So once I've cut that off, I'm going to just score this up. I'm really trying to create slip with this, so I'm using water. And then I'm going to take my batter bowl. Generally, I would dip it in my bucket like this, but my batter bowl is too big for the bucket. So now I'm just going to add some water this way. This isn't the best way to add water, but you know, you work with what you got, right? So now I've got it wet. I want to make sure that I'm placing this in the correct spot. So I'm going to take a ruler or anything straight, and I'm going to go from the spout all the way to the other end and make sure it's going across the very center of the bottom there. So once I have the placement correct, I mark it with my finger. So you can see I've got a little mark right there with my fingernail. And now I know when I put this away that that's where the center is going to be. So now I'm going to take my handle that I scored and I'm going to press it right into that spot, setting it down so that I can use both hands. I want one hand on the inside of the bowl and one hand on the outside. And this is going to really help so that I can get it nice and snug. I want slip coming out from between the two as I press it together. And then I'm going to just pull that over. I keep my thumb in it for like a little guide. Right now it's sticking out too far. You can see that. So I'm going to press in and then press down. This is going to really help get that shape that I want. So here we go. Just pressing it. And you can see this is a little teeny tiny handle. Your hand is absolutely not going to fit in there. I don't want my hand to. What I want is I want my thumb to be able to fit in there. So this is my little thumb and my hand's going to wrap around it like that. And that's how I'm going to use it. You can also stack a bunch of these in your cupboard this way. You kind of go back and forth where the handle goes in the spout and then the spout, you flip it the other direction. You know what I mean. But making sure that this is well attached and that I don't have any sharp edges, because when your hand is on there, you want it to be very comfortable, right? So I'm making sure this is going to be comfortable to use and exactly the shape that I want. If it looks a little odd, then I'm going to fix it. This is the best time to be kind of doing any tweaking that you want to do. So now I feel like I'm pretty happy with it. It's straight from that spout you see there. If you have any comments, please leave it below. And if you like this video, please remember to subscribe. Can't wait to see you all in the studio.